Hello.
Here comes my star student.
I'll never forget the slide that says if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late.
Baby, you would do well in my class.
Because I am the queen of dialing in at the exact time, not 5 minutes early.
It's interesting. I find myself going to video meetings at the right time, but in person meetings, I've always shown up 5 or 10 minutes early.
Uh huh.
And if you were in my class, you would have heard a story about the time my business partner embarrassed me beyond belief. We were newly, partners, and I worked under this very false assumption. I had this what I thought was so clever. I called it Hillman time, and and my rationalization was that um, none of the clocks in the United States were synchronized, and so they were at least 5 minutes apart, and so I could be 5 minutes late and still claim to be on time. I think I must have promulgated that falsehood long enough. And I said it. I came in late to one of a meeting that he had called, and this is my business partner, but also my senior. He's 7 or 8 years my senior, and he just ripped me a new one in front of the staff. He says, "I'm so sick of this bullshit that you talk about Hillman time. It is not. There is no such thing as Hillman time, and basically what you're doing is it's incredibly rude to us and everyone else." And I'm like, I'm gonna cry, but he knew me well enough that unless he embarrassed me to that level, he probably
Uh
wasn't
huh.
going to get the kind of change in behavior he was looking for. And so, now he was wrong on a lot of things. Okay, I mean, on that particular thing, he was dead nuts on. And so, from that point on, we sort of changed the culture of the firm, and it always started. We had this, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late, and that's the way we ran. That's the way we ran the place. So.
And what's nice about that 5 minutes early time is I noticed at Amway the gal that had say she was training me, but she was actually my staff, so that was
Okay.
kind of a weird situation.
Yeah.
But she would always go early to meetings, so I would always go with her. And some great personal conversation happens before those meetings.
Sure. Well, there's my partner was doing it predominantly as a sign of respect.
Mhm.
There was, if the meeting is important enough to be there, then it's important enough to show up early and that, come and because it was drilled into our culture, um, we had a lot of difficulty with, we would put up with clients who would show up late. You can't do much about that, but we wouldn't put up with staff. And really, culture is obviously set from the top, and so it's nice to work for a place knowing that, if they say the morning meeting starts at 8, it starts at 8, not 8:15. It's not when you get your coffee and I can get there and it's okay. I'll be late. No, it's not okay. And so it was it's just a matter of a mindset. It's not like not like the world's suddenly going to change, but at least that it's going to start. It's going to start on time. So,
Right.
as I run my classes, I tell the students very clearly, we will start on time, and we will end on time. I will not keep you late. I don't use the word never very often, but I will never keep you late. But that in order to end on time, I've got to start on time. And so if you're late, I'm going to cut you a break the first time. The second time, we're going to have a conversation. The third time, we're going to have a meeting. And
Mhm.
and and it stops. It stops very quickly.
Yeah. Right. Right. You know,
Hello,
one
Mr. Mansour. Yes, what's that, Becky?
one thing that I can't remember where I read it, but they were talking about the challenges for students of switching from in classroom to online in March,
Okay.
and what were some unexpected things. And one of the things that the students had said was they just missed chatting with other students
Oh,
before
I
class
believe that.
started,
Sure, absolutely.
and that's
One,
something hard to replicate.
yeah, no, it's very hard. Oh, yeah, I don't know that I was successful replicating it. One thing that I did do, and I will do it again this fall. In fact, I need to remember to get. Brad was this way for me. Hi, Brad, in the spring. Um, I had a sign up sheet for students per class. You had to sign in 15 minutes early, and then they would go through. Brad, do you did that? Did you? Weren't you my tech
Yeah.
support? Yeah.
Mhm.
And so they got 5 points extra credit or 10 points extra credit for signing up and doing it. But he would go through, and I could chit chat with people as they were coming in, but he would do an audio video check with every single one of them, so that by the time the class period came around, everybody was in, ready to go, and we started on time. As opposed to me having to do it, which was, you're trying to get your last minute thing set up and everything else. It never worked. So I had my built-in tech support, if you will.
So does that mean that you were not on the meeting until right before it started?
No, I still was, but I could go on mute, or I could play with my slide
Okay.
deck,
You
or I
just
could
let
get
someone else coordinate all the,
yeah,
hey,
yeah,
how
yeah,
are you?
yeah.
How are you?
Brad would go, hey, Becky, let's do a sound check real quick, and invariably, after a number of these, it went pretty smoothly. But the first couple times, it was really helpful because people would have to dial back in, or if for some reason they dropped in the middle of the class, that he was there to let them back in and do all this sorts of thing that needs to be done, because it's hard enough to keep a class, balancing all the various things you need to do, let alone trying to do all the tech
Right.
simultaneously. So, hello, Jacob.
Hello.
Bridget Vandenberg.
Oh, yeah, I'm in guard with her. She's a really good, I love her.
I had her, I just talked to her. I had a Zoom meeting this afternoon with her. And I had her for Management 340 last spring. And I'm going to probably have her come in along with a number of other students. And Becky, I don't know if you've ever done this, but it's a recommended thing. I could have Brad do it too when I think about it. Dial in Zoom, and I will leave the meeting and allow the new students to ask the old students, does he really mean 5 minutes early, or you're late, or does he really not give any latitude if you're late on an assignment? And does he really mean, yeah, it means all that and more,
You don't want to find out.
Yeah, and does he really have to be such a jerk? And Brad would go, well, he comes across as a jerk a little bit, but it's like your grandpa. You just sort of get used to him after a while, and you just look past it. So not a big deal. Wow, this is 4 students. Watch out, everybody. We are almost breaking records here. Woo! All right. Well, as we said earlier, if we don't get started on time, we can never end on time, and I always end on time or before. So let's do that. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you had a relaxing weekend. I don't know if that's possible given the summer. We got pretty good weather lately. Yeah, Becky, what's up?
Your volume sounds a little softer than normal.
Good. All right. Let me see what I can do. Thank you for the heads up.
I can put headsets on, which will make it easier for me to hear, but I didn't know if anyone else had that issue.
Anybody else have that issue? Am I not talking loud enough for anybody?
It's my failing hearing.
Maybe that's it. Let me try a different microphone. If you cannot hear your voice, select a different microphone. It says I only have one microphone, so it doesn't look like I'm really got much of a choice here.
Okay, I'm good now.
All right. Thank you for the heads up. Okay. So we have a couple things to cover tonight. It's not a really heavy night, but in large part, I want to make sure that you're prepared for tomorrow night, which is our time to share with each other about some things. So let's get started. Okay. So I need to share out the screen. So just a minute, please. Share. Sharing screen. Okay. You should hopefully see the title slide for session 3. Good. All right. Excellent. Okay. So that being the case, we'll get started. This is session 3 of 4, next to last one. So let's get to it. Couple quick reviews here. You've got one quick quiz. Becky, not too many questions. I think only like 3, 4, whatever. 4 questions.
4.
Okay. on this last one. So they are pulled right from the reading. So I would suggest that you read it. And our last session is tomorrow night, and it will be at 7 o'clock, just like tonight. Mostly tomorrow night is going to be a little bit of wrap up anything we didn't get tonight, and then what I'm going to hopefully see, and we can take them in any particular order. I don't care, but Jacob, you should be talking about Teams. Is that right? Becky is going to be talking about Zoom. Shaman is going to be talking about Google Meet. Is that right, Mr. Robertson?
I thought it was Google Hangout. Is that the same
You know
thing?
what? That's the same thing. Yeah, they're. In fact, hopefully you'll tell us why they changed their name. I don't know. I was doing a quick Google search today, and it's confusing about Google. They tend to change brand names and stuff like that. It used to be Hangouts, now Meetup, whatever. And Brad is going to be talking about one of my favorite pieces of software, Bluescape, which I'll be using again this fall. I didn't use it at all last year, but I use it a lot in Management 331. And Jamal is MIA. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if he's going to show up tomorrow night or whether he isn't or what he's going to do the report or just what. But we'll let him worry about that. And just for an FYI, the quiz is not due until Friday night. Like, again, it's not a big deal. So you could do it anytime. I see Becky already has. And the final assignment is not due until Friday night either. Even though you're presenting it tomorrow night, you don't have to upload it. And so if you get any feedback or you feel like you want to make some tweaks to it after tomorrow night, upload it on Friday, that's fine. I'll do a quick grading of it on Friday night. And grades should be posted probably Friday. I don't know how long I have, but probably Saturday. There's only the 4 or 5 of you, so it's not the big deal. All right. Anybody a fan of Dilbert? I love Dilbert. I think he's got some great business things. It says, hey, I decided to be more of an FYI boss. I'll forward emails that everyone that already went to everyone and add a note saying FYI. And of course, Dilbert says, "Do you call that managing?" No, I call it leading. So sometimes leading is a misnomer, right? And so we see some very interesting things. What some people call leadership and what people call leading, and vice versa. And this whole course. At times we use the term managing and leading interchangeably, but in fact, I'm going to spend a little bit of time tonight talking to you about how they're different from each other, because they are different. And because you're advanced students of management, you need to understand that leadership is not management and management is not leadership, but even though that we do tend to use them interchangeably. Much of tonight's content is borrowed from a previous book I used. The Jones Contemporary Management, but not to worry. A lot of it feels fairly intuitive. We're just putting it into good shape for you. So these were real popular in the 80s and 90s. These were little, I don't know, posters that were around offices about character and integrity and a bunch of other crap. And then somebody somewhere, I think it's called despair.com is what it looks like, went off and created sarcastic replacements for them. So I love this one. This is great. We see the pyramids of Egypt. Anybody been to Egypt? I have been once. I got a chance to see it. They are impressive, you have to admit. So achievement. You can't help but look at these pyramids and think of achievement. And of course, the little phrase underneath. You can do anything you set your mind to when you have the vision, the determination. Oh, and the supply of expendable labor. Anything is possible. Don't let life stop you. Okay, good. So if you have tons and tons of people, you too can build pyramids. All right. Having said that, let's go on to the nature of leadership. I am curious. I'm going to go around Robin here a little bit. Each of you have had, you're far enough along in your lives, to have people that you perceived to have been good leaders. And sometimes beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So I'm curious. I'm going to call him Brad first, just because he's easy to call him. Tell me about a leader in your life and what made them, in your mind at least, a good leader.
I had a manager actually when I was working with vector marketing, and I think he was probably one of the most effective leaders I had, because just, yes, performance was like a big concept with that job. Like, you had to be making sales and you had to be doing all these things.
Hmm.
But the way he approached it was such that it wasn't just for like the office's benefit. They kind of really took an individualized approach as to how they would, kind of coach and mentor us as, I guess, subordinates
Okay.
to himself.
So you liked the fact that he personified or individualized the goals down to what was going to be important for you personally? Is that what I'm hearing? Or
Yes.
okay.
Yep. It was very individualized. Like, what do you want to accomplish? What do you
Okay.
want to do? Okay, I'm going to like give you the tools to get there.
So he made it very attainable and understandable for you as a salesperson for vector marketing. Jacob, you've had some good people in your life, I bet. What was a person that you thought provided great leadership?
So I worked at Tim Hortons in high school, and the store owner for the second store that I worked for, I think, was probably a really good leader. She just, comparing her to the other store owners that I had, she just really saw us as equals instead of somebody that was below us.
Okay.
And she made sure, instead of like reprimanding people, she educated them, just was kind of efficient, I guess.
Interesting. Okay. So there wasn't this, in fact, I think it's in, I don't know if it's Ian Furr's video where we talk about, we have to bend over and kiss the ass of the leader. The leader is not supposed to be doing that. The leader is supposed to be sort of clearing the way for us in that regard. And that would be one of the components of servant leadership. Shimon, who's been a good leader for you?
My summer as a team leader, my manager, John, he wasn't there the first summer I was a team member.
Okay.
But he was there the second year, and pretty much the same thing as Jacob. He was like pretty much side by side with us, helping us work rather than just watching and dictating.
Okay.
I'd say he was definitely more of a servant leader for sure.
So a leader that was willing to roll up their sleeves, did more than just talk, but their behavior was, work alongside you, and felt like you're all pulling on the oars together, I guess.
Honestly, he was a great worker. Okay. I'd say he almost did more work than
really more work. Okay, well, that's good.
Well, I think he was just trying to lead by example.
Yeah, lead by example. We hear that a lot, right? And so, by the way, for those of you who haven't been out in the business community very much, you should consider trying to emulate those things that you saw in others that you thought was good leadership capabilities, because I think I may have stated this before. If I haven't, I will repeat it, and I don't mind repeating it. The reason most people move out of their job is not because of the work, and it's not because of the type of work that they're doing. It's not because of the pay. It's not because of the benefits. It's because they don't respect or appreciate their leader. They don't get along with their manager, their leader, their superior. That is the primary reason that people leave. And so retention is one of the things that managers and leaders are supposed to do. Well, if you want to retain people, don't be a jerk. That's not so hard. Becky, you've had a number of bosses, if you will, leaders over the course of your career. Tell us about one or two of them and what you liked about them.
My favorite one started out as my staff. So he had been with PwC for 1 year when I moved back from Connecticut to South Bend.
Okay.
And so it was just a couple months later, I became a manager. So then I watched him move up in the organization. And so it was probably 11 years later, maybe 12. He's the partner and I'm still a manager. And but he was my favorite leader because he knew that fine balance of just, saying, hey, how you doing? Do you need any help? Are you okay? And he would describe me as one of the managers that he didn't really have to worry about.
Sure.
Because I don't get involved in Becky's stuff unless there's an issue, and if there is, she'll tell me about it, and then I'll get involved. Otherwise, she's on her own. And
and later tonight we're going to talk about situational leadership, which sounds like he sort of went to it intuitively, but you can learn it too. So we'll talk about that. Go ahead. What was the other?
Right. Well, so I personally think I trained him very well.
Well, I
because
bet you did. You get
he
to
was
take
a
credit.
great leader.
Hey, anything my kids do successfully, it's my fault. It's my reason. And if they fail, it's probably a lack of love on the part of their mother or something. So,
The thing that I like the most, though, is even though I left that company in 2017, just a few weeks ago, I was listening to a webcast for CE, and he was one of the people on it.
oh,
And when he saw that I dialed in, I actually dialed in 10 minutes early. He's like, Brad, Becky dialed in, unmute her. So he did, and they're like, hey, Becky, how you doing? So we had a nice chat. And at the end of it, he's just like, Becky, it's just good to hear your voice.
sure.
And so it's great when you have those relationships, even though it's years later, we don't
Yeah.
work with each other anymore, but it's still something.
Becky, you mentioned something in describing the gentleman to start with, is that he had good balance. And I see that as that's a hard thing to teach. You can learn it, perhaps. The overreaching leader or the overreaching manager, the micromanager, that's not good. The one that's too reclusive and gives you too much latitude, the one that tries to be too much of a friend, the one that's too much of a hard ass. I mean, there's a lot to be said for those people who can find that good balance. And they're human. As my football coach would say, they still put their pants on one leg at a time. And so we still have to show them grace as well as leaders, because they can mess up. But boy, it sure is wonderful when they don't, and they can have a great work culture around, and things go about that. Well, we're studying, leadership here tonight, and we're going to give you a quick definition, at least my view of what a leader is. And it's less of a personal characteristic than it is kind of well, you'll see here in just a minute. A leader, a person who's providing leadership, is an individual who's able to share their vision of a preferred future state. Now, that sounds kind of, I don't know, intellectual, but think about, but put it in practice, okay? Shaman, you're a leader who came in and worked alongside you. My guess is they were talking about, hey, this is what we're going to accomplish during this shift, guys. We're going to do this and this and this. Jacob, we're going to serve, customers today at Tim Horton. We're gonna hit all the numbers. We're going to also, clean these particular segments or do whatever stuff. And that vision that we talk about, the future state may be something as simple as at the end of our shift. It's 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours from now. Now, oftentimes we say leaders have a vision, and those that have the farther vision tend to, are higher up in the organization. So they're not looking out at the end of the shift. They might be looking out at the end of the week or the month or the quarter or the decade, right? And so, we see leaders who are saying, I see a future state where CDH is not, the 5 consultants we have now in this little office in downtown Grand Rapids, but I see sort of a Midwest level kind of force to be reckoned with a high level of respect and a lot of certifications. And I see all these things, and a leader can maybe spin a narrative story about what the future looks like. And of course, part of their job is to share that story and vision with their staff or their followers, because if we have leaders, we have followers, although we don't call them followers. And if I can get you excited about my vision, hey, wouldn't it be great if we were a recognized leader? What do you think that would look like? What would that mean to you, Jacob? What would that mean to you, Becky? Well, it probably means I'd have a promotion. It probably means I'd be making a lot of money. It probably means I'd be working on really cool jobs. Yes, all that's true. So if I can get you committed to that vision, then I don't have to worry about compliance. And so you're going to continue to try to help me achieve that vision, even when I'm not in the room or I'm not there with a whip over your back, trying to make sure that you're, getting done whatever you have to do that particular shift. So leaders typically are excellent storytellers. They aren't always, but they can be. And they often are able to do so in a way that it becomes compelling for their followers in order to see, in order to buy into that vision. In another way, we can see that they also, through their kind of personality or psychological powers or whatever, not physical power. They don't make you do things, but they exert influence over you, and as a group help you achieve organizational goals. So both those are sort of two things about leaders. And so the reason I make this distinction is because we're ready to go to the next level here a little bit. We need managers and we need leaders. And sometimes they're the same person. And sometimes they're not. And sometimes you'll see that you've got a person that's over you that's a good manager, but they're not much of a leader. And have any of you had leaders that aren't managers? And we'll get into that in just a second. So let me mention this here. So we outside of, you know, business school, most people will use these terms almost interchangeably, but they're not. That's not true. Okay. But you're students of business, so you know that words mean things. And so a manager is a person responsible for the process and procedures of whatever it is that you're doing. They're a bit of a rule follower. They understand what the goals are that we're trying to achieve. They help us get those goals. We're achieving those goals, and we have you know, when things are running smoothly, people are doing good management, right? We are managing things. Good, that's great. That's to differentiate from a leader. A leader isn't so focused on the immediate goals, but is charting a course for some future state. Okay, and they, rather than worrying about process and whatever, they tend to worry more about inspiration and motivation. I'm not saying managers don't motivate people, but leaders really use motivation to try to get commitment onto his future vision. And a true leader is a destabilizing factor. Okay, a true leader challenges the status quo and says, we can be better, we can get better, and here's how we will get better, and here's why I think we should get better. So in a way, they almost work contrary to each other. You got this manager saying, here are our current goals as they've set up, here's the processes we're going to use to reach those goals, let's make sure we're all working well as a team, we're a well-oiled machine, we're going to get there, and we keep things in control and that sort of thing. And then I got this leader going, yeah, but we want to set new records. Yeah, but we want to do all these things. Now, like I said, there are people that are both. More often than not, we don't have a leader of the department and a manager of the department. So these people tend to sort of, a person might take on both roles. But you tend to sort of see them go leaning one way or the other. Does anybody have an example of somebody that maybe was more manager than leader, or more leader than manager, and maybe your description might help convey that to the others? With only 4 people, we don't have a lot of choices to pick from. So sometimes leaders can be so disruptive that they're always challenging the status quo, and they're unwilling to follow even the processes that they know need to be followed in order to stay within the rules of the organization. And so I've worked for people like that, and sometimes we might call them scatterbrained or inconsistent. And all they're doing is they just forgot to put on their manager hat and make sure that we're following the processes here. So anyway, in an oversimplified graphic here, if you're a visual learner, you might think that managers are sort of pushing the organization along and sort of directing it, and making sure it's staying in its realm, whereas a leader is out front, tend to be pulling it. But that's probably a little oversimplification, but it's still. Okay. I'm going to skip this forward because it's just part of the original slide deck, and I'm not particularly concerned about it. So, all right. One more thing that's rather new material I want you to be aware of before we start talking about some of the things that you've already read. Has anybody ever seen this slide before that we talk about sources of managerial power? Should have been covered in Management 331, but it's often skipped over, and yet I think it's pretty effective. And it ties back to some of the motivational theories that we talked about before. All right. So as a boss, if you want to use the sort of the colloquial name, or as a superior or team lead, you are equipped with 5 areas from which you get your power. And before we go too far into this, Jacob, do any of those resonate with you already? Do you see any of those that are like, oh yeah, that makes sense? Can you see that slide well enough and see which power,
Yeah.
which one do you think would be most useful for you if you were a leader or a manager?
Useful for me personally?
Yeah, which one do you think you'd like to use?
I would think the expert appeal would probably be something that I would like to go for.
Expert, yeah. Becky, you probably used expert power a lot in your world as a tax manager, did you not?
Yeah, especially towards the last probably 5 to 10 years, I became the expert in Illinois individual income taxation. So that was kind of cool when I would have people globally. They'd usually contact a person in California who was our tech expert, but as soon as they realized it was Illinois, she's like, "Yeah, call Becky Kaiser."
Call Becky Kaiser.
So that was kind of fun to have that
sure.
recognition.
Yeah, I bet it is. Yeah, Brad, a lot of people, a lot of us. Do any of these powers come familiar to you? Expert, referent, legitimate, coercive, or reward power? Were you, when you've been, I forgot what you listed as your leadership job or something.
Um,
Of course, I haven't explained them yet, so you don't really know what they all are yet. But
I think kind of with a lot of things in life, you need to have a healthy balance between the different types of power.
Well, let's get into these 5 powers are actually divided up into two sections. One is called the formal power group, and those are the bottom 3 that you have listed there. And then you have these personal power, right, which are 2 above. So let me go through them very, very quickly. Formal power, legitimate, reward, and coercive. And we're going to cover those. And then the personal power, expert and referent or referential power. So legitimate power, we all are fully aware of legitimate power, okay? Shimon, remind me again, what was the role you played in the organization? What was the title that you had?
I was a team leader.
Team leader, okay. So as a team leader at the organization, what was the name of the organization again?
Michigan Department of Transportation.
Yeah, okay, MDOT. Okay, as a team leader at MDOT, there were certain things that you could do with that title that other people beneath you could not do. Could you name any of those things? I don't know what they might be. It might be.
Well, I guess first of all, manage the team.
Okay, so you could call a meeting. You could call a meeting of the team, right? Yeah. Okay. Could you schedule people?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Okay. So you could call. You could manage a team. You could call them off individually and give them feedback or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so if you were a team member, not a team, you were a team lead, but if you were a team member, it would be inappropriate for one team member to call another team member and say, "Hey, I want you to come over here and I'm going to give you feedback on what you just did." Team members wouldn't do that to each other, right? But a team leader to a team member would do that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we call that legitimate power, right? That's the power that comes with the title of team lead, right? Jacob, what was your title over at Horton?
In Morton's. I was a shift manager.
Shift manager, okay. Tell me some legitimate power tasks that you were given as a shift manager that non-shift managers would not have had.
Being able to handle any of the money in the safe.
Sure, okay.
Refunds, write-ups.
Yeah, okay, so let's take the money in the safe. So if suddenly Brad was one of your staff and you saw him poking around in the safe, making change or what he claimed to be making change, but we know people like Brad and what they do with, loose money, things like that. He could get himself fired for that, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, but not you. You're a shift lead, right? You're allowed to get into the safe and do whatever you have to do to the money, right? So again, those are legitimate power items that we're talking about here, right? So they come with the title. So when you get promoted, Becky came from a hierarchy, you know, a professional services firm like PwC has a very clear stepping stone. She mentioned, I don't know if you already heard, she had a staff member who became a partner. Those are different levels within the organization. And so partners can do things that managers can't do, that staff can't do, right? That sort of thing. In the world that I came in, when I was at Seidman and Seidman, or BDO Seidman, we used to laugh about some of the legitimate power things that went with the role. For instance, as a staff member, we got issued some office equipment, and you were given this stapler. Okay, you know, you had a stapler. Ooh, that was cool, right? It was a black stapler. It was a pretty normal stapler. It came with staples, you know, that was it, right? But when you got to be a manager, it was a bigger stapler and bigger staples. When you got to be a senior manager, it was an electric stapler. Ooh, and it sat on your desk, right? And when you're a partner, you know, it was a gas-powered pneumatic stapler, right? That came with its own service technician or something. And so we used to laugh, right, that when we started CDH, we weren't going to you know, acknowledge people by the size of their stapler, you know, because it was meant as a joke. Because it's like, no, we're all equals here. We all get the same stapler. Now, obviously, that's a joke, but it wasn't a joke because it really did happen to a certain extent. Now, it wasn't just staplers. It was where your desk sat, or the size of chair you had, or whether you had a corner office or you shared an office. Does this sound familiar, Becky?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah. And you could tell just by a number of things. You could pop into somebody's office and you could say, oh, do they share it? Is it a corner? Did they pick their own furniture? Blah, blah, blah. They're a partner. They're a senior partner. They're a super, super senior partner, you know, on the top floor in the corner office with carpeting that's so thick it needs, you know, snowshoes in order to get over to the guy's desk, right? That's what happens. Okay. All right. Legitimate power. Reward power. Oh my God, we love that. Becky, did you have some reward power where you were?
Yeah, we would have spot bonuses. So it meant that if I had a staff that performed really well, I could recommend that they get a bonus. It's kind of like on the spot. That's what they call a spot bonus. But it was to be able to tie some financial incentive directly to the behavior and have it be closer to the time rather than having to wait for the annual
Perfect.
review.
Very tangible. How about, Brad, intangible reward? What could you give somebody that wasn't financial, but maybe a different reward?
Praise.
Praise, absolutely. Could you
Recognition.
was it just verbal, or could you call them out in front of the group and say, hey, you know, so and so did a great job, or would it be
Send
something
an
like that?
email to your whole organization.
I'm sorry?
Like send an email out to your entire
Absolutely. Reward power. Yeah, you know, it's very effective. If when is it not effective, Jacob?
If it's not tied with the behavior.
Not behind behavior. There's one reason. Shimon, what's another reason it's not effective? Reward power. Particularly intangible reward power.
I don't know. That was the one I was going to say, honestly.
Becky,
sure.
Brad, jump in. When
If it's too often.
Too often, absolutely, right? Shimon, that's a very fine necklace you have there. I mean, you're looking particularly.
Thank you.
I mean, whatever, right? Wow, I really like the way you sharpened that pencil, Shimon. That was awesome. Really? That's what you're going to praise me about today? You know, have you ever had a boss that, you know, wow, thanks for showing up today on time. Great job. You know, like, really? Okay. Are we going to get down to that? Do I get a gold sticker for coming in today too, or not? You know, I mean, okay. So reward power, it can be overused, in which case you've wasted that power, right? By the way, it can be wasted the other way. Maybe you never give praise. Maybe you never hand out anything. And you've got this reward power that's in your back, it's in your quiver of tools that you could use, and you never use it. Well, isn't that stupid, right? Okay. Here's another one. Coercive power. Jacob, did you ever have to use coercive power at the old donut joint?
Maybe with write-ups, I don't know if that would be classified.
Oh, I think that's yeah. Write-ups would definitely call coercive power, right? Yeah. What's a write-up? What would cause a write-up? Catching Brad in the safe again, or no? Doing something else?
Yeah, just small stuff like that. Nothing. If it was too serious, I'd go to the GM. But
Okay. All right. Showing up late. Shimon showing up late.
yeah,
Yeah. Not that he would ever do that. Would you, Shimon? He would show up late.
No.
Never. Okay. Becky, when is coercive power not effective, or when can it backfire?
Oh, well, I was just reading through the list and I was like, oh, well, here we've got our examples. So limited in effectiveness if never used. So just like with children, because that's what I'm thinking of when I see
Oh
that.
yeah.
Is if you threaten something and then you don't follow through, they'll learn that. And then your threats aren't good anymore. It doesn't matter when you say that because they know it won't result in anything.
I forget if I've told you all my stories. I know I haven't because I've only had you for 2 weeks. But did I tell you the story about the client in Chicago who threatened to fire his IT director all the time?
Mm-hmm.
He had no coercive power left. He had frittered it all away. It was ridiculous, And naturally, the IT director just walked around, thumbed his nose at the boss all the time. He's like, "How does he get away from that? I'm going to fire him." And I remember interviewing the IT director. He's like, "Oh hell, I hear that 4 times a week." He's so full of shit. I can't even, So, by the way, if we're back to if we're going to tie our power structures and things to other things we've already learned, who wants to take a stab at that? There were 4 operant conditions that Skinner told us about. Does anybody remember or can think of which one coercive power is tied to? Jacob?
wouldn't it be positive punishment?
Well, it's positive reinforcement or it's punishment, but it's not both. Which is it?
Oh. In AP Psych, we learned them a little bit different.
Okay.
I don't know what exactly it was called in that article, but
Okay.
I think just punishment was what
Yeah.
it wasn't a punishment extinction.
No, there was punishment and extinction. So we're gonna say punishment. Yeah, this is tied into punishment, right? So, okay, let's go to the 2 personal powers. Expert power. We've already sort of covered that, right? When you're good at what you do, and I think that all of you are probably very good at what you do. As you get better at it, you get moved up in the organization, and then suddenly you become the trainer, right? Or the quality control person. You know what it means to close Tim Hortons tonight, or what it means to be a shift lead, or Brad, you know what it means to make your sales goal that week or month, and you help others and coach them, and they look to you for expert power, right? Certainly Becky in tax rates with Illinois. Once again, anything overused can become a detriment, and so you can become a bit of a nag, bit of a know-it-all, bit of a whatever. But this is a pretty common power, and it resides with the person, right? It doesn't go with a role, right? Maybe the next person that takes over for Brad isn't the super salesman that he is, and suddenly, even though they have the same role, they don't have the same respect as an expert in sales as Brad did, and we don't go to that person for recommendations on how to hit our sales targets. Okay, so expert power, and then the last one is really useful as a manager, and it's called referent or sometimes referent power. And what it is that sort of unspoken kind of intangible where workers and your subordinate and your staff have respect and admiration for you, maybe even loyalty, to the extent that you become motivational and a leader, inspiring and trustworthy, and they want to be like you. Okay, it's a referential. That's why they're referencing you as when I grow up, I'd like to be like Becky or something like that, right? She's a good person. I will do things for her because I just really like working for her. And I bet that you've got, I hope that you've had people like that. And when you can develop that, and by the way, you can't tell somebody respect me because they won't, right? Just by saying that would automatically almost put you into a bad spot. But when you have this power, a lot of people think that this is in fact the most effective power to have, and also the hardest to acquire, because it takes a fair amount of time and effort and trust and experience, and you can't just demand that somebody respect you. Can you think of anybody that you had referential power or had referential power over you, or that you had referential power towards them in your lives or your experiences? Shimon, you said no? Nobody. Sorry. Hopefully you will for somebody else. Nope.
For me, it was that leader that I was describing earlier.
Sounds like it.
Because I just, if he asked me to do something, I would do everything in my power to do it, because I know that he wasn't the kind of person to just dump on stuff for no reason.
Right.
And so if he asked me, I knew that he really wanted my help. And but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed working for him.
My first boss, he had a lot of referential power for me. He was clearly, my superior, 40 years my elder, 30 or 40, successful businessman, well respected in the community, ethical. I wanted to be just like him, and I loved the way he treated people, and I loved the way he treated me. And I said, someday I hope to be something like him. Very generous soul, very giving, and loved to have a good time too. And so there was a lot of things that I liked about him. Okay, so we've just covered source of managerial power. Those are all the new materials that you didn't get covered with, but I really think it's important, if you're going to take any course in management, that you have some sense of what we're talking about here. I want to go to some things that you did study. Servant leadership, a desire to serve and work for the benefit of others. And here, we're not talking about others outside of the organization, but actually you serve the others that report to you. It's a curious kind of twist. Now, the concept has been around for a while, and Ken Blanchard is often credited with it, but he is not the person who came up with this concept of servant leadership, although he has one of the most famous books about it, along with this guy named Phil Hodges. I think at this point you've all seen this video, correct? Or at least you pretended to try to take the test. Okay, that's cool. So let's talk about the video. First of all, what, if anything, did you take away from the Blanchard video? What did you either like or dislike about the video that you remembered? I know it's been a day or two since maybe you've seen it, but who can share something with us? Yeah, Brad.
I think the biggest thing I liked from the video is his focus on the customer, and basically kind of what he was saying, that like if you're treating your customers well, and you're putting that focus on the people who are interacting with your customers, then you're not only going to provide the best services for your customers, but they'll also will likely come back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that he put a lot of focus on like Southwest Airlines and just kind of how he experienced that.
Yep.
And then he had like real world examples that he was sharing with his audience on kind of how that servant leadership was put into action through that company.
Yeah, Ken Blanchard is a good storyteller, right? And so a lot of times we learn well. Many of us learn through stories, and so he had a number of stories about Southwest. He also had some stories about a guy over at WD-40, which I thought was interesting. In fact, maybe we're going to talk about. I won't make you go through this, but there were 3 things that he said made up a compelling vision. And when I cover Management 331, these are important. One is, what's the purpose? What's the vision of the future? And what are your values? And so a servant leader really understands these things and has them sort of just innately knitted into their background as they provide leadership to their staff. You referred to this a little bit, Brad, but I'm going to ask somebody else to step in, so that's only one of the 3 of you. He talked about this inverted pyramid. Does anybody remember what he was talking about there? You can refer to your notes if you want. Shimon, have you got something there? You were sort of
the pyramid, pretty much he like flipped I don't remember, it was like the leadership pyramid or whatever, upside down from, I think it was strategic management, operational and then you know, like employees and customers at the bottom, and then he pretty much flipped that.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, no, that's it. You just nailed it. Yeah, exactly. So oftentimes, in fact, even in Management 331, we talk about, okay, well, you've got strategic leadership, what I call the C-suite, you know, the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, all these. Um, I don't know if everybody's ever heard it called mahogany row. That's usually the people that are up in the top of the building that have all of the fancy desks and the secretaries and the whatever and the plush carpet, and that's the C-suite. C as in letter C, not SEA, but C-suite. And then we have the, you know, the less strategic managers, but then the tactical managers, and then the mainline people, and then the frontline people, and eventually we get down to where the customers are. And Blanchard says, no, we really need to flip that around. The most important people in the organization are not, or is not, the CEO, even though in a traditional management hierarchy, they're at the pinnacle of the pyramid. The most important people are the customers, but we don't control the customers. What we do control, or what we do have control over, or can more greatly influence, is our frontline people. And when we do that, then we have inverted the pyramid in such a way that we become service leaders. And so then the next most important people to service those are the tactical managers, the mid-level managers, who will make sure the front level people have what they need to be successful. And of course, the C-suite is the least important in Blanchard's view, because they are not, you know, imperative to reaching the customer, although they do set direction. And a lot of people might argue that, well, overall they're important, and surely they are, but on a transactional daily basis, not nearly as important as those frontline people. Okay. Does anybody remember the stories about WD-40 he told? This is a guy named Gary Ridge. He said, "Don't grade my paper, help me get an A." Does anybody remember that story that was told in there? Jacob,
Weren't
could
they,
you Becky?
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Becky. Yeah.
Oh, I was, if I remember right, it was like at the quarterly meetings, they, you know, the whole point was to help your people succeed.
Right.
You know, don't be sitting there criticizing them. Figure out how to get them to be that top level performer.
Yeah.
And I think the part that really stuck out to me is when they said they would get rid of the manager for not helping their staff get to the A.
I think that's awesome, right? Because what are managers there for, right? They are there to, well, basically allow the A's to excel, right? To help the B's maybe eventually become A's, and see if we can maintain the C level people and make them be successful and grow in the organization. And if you're not doing it as a manager, then what are you there for? Because if everybody's an A, they don't need a manager, okay? A-level staff don't need managers. Becky was referring to this partner. Says, "Well, I love having you as a manager because, you know, you're so easy." Well, that's because you're easy to manage, Becky. Sorry, you show up early, you do your work, you work hard, the clients like you. I could look like a great manager, but you don't need managing. You know, I don't get to take credit for that. What I get to take credit for are the people that weren't great employees and somehow became good managers. And so I really like the fact that in the case of WD-40, if I am going to remove Jacob, I'm going to Shimon. Shimon, Jacob just isn't cutting it, man. I've done everything I can. And Shimon's going to go, okay, you're going to have to justify why you weren't successful with Jacob. And if there isn't a good answer, or I find that you're just sort of casting him off into the wind, then there's a good chance you're going to be replaced or demoted, or maybe go to remedial manager training, because it was your job to help him be successful. And if you've done everything in your power to do that and it's still not successful, then yes, you're right. Now maybe we do need to replace Jacob. But too often than not, managers sort of recommend or dismiss people, not because they weren't the right people, but maybe the manager just was ineffective in trying to get those people to move forward. So that, to me, is a really good story, and a good story to carry forward when you take on that leadership role of managing others. It is your job, it's your duty, if you will, to help them succeed. All right, then we had Ian Furr. Good old Ian Furr. I love his little accent, right? I think he's from South Africa, right? Johannesburg. What did we hear? What did you think, Shimon, of that particular video? Did you watch that one?
Yeah, yeah, I watched it. I liked it. That was the one. It was a Jewish guy, right? The TED
Yeah,
Talk.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he pretty much just talked about, how to excel at being a servant leader and how pretty much that just motivated people to do more for the company and whatnot and like to, pull through for the managers.
Yeah, in fact, it's interesting. He was saying, we can't inject motivation inside people. Um, they sort of uh, lead them or provide opportunities for them to excel or give them places to go where they wouldn't be able to get to on their own, right? And I think that that's an important aspect. And so he had a lot of stories in there. Of course, this was the time of apartheid, and so he had race relations issues. He had situations where he was in a privileged situation and didn't realize what his workers were having to go through.
I liked his,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, please.
I liked the story at the it was like the drive-through or
Yeah.
sit-in restaurant. Yeah.
Don't you
thought-
ever treat my white boy like that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. He's pretty funny that way, and I love the story about his. I think he's got even their product return policy or something. Hey, if it doesn't fit or you don't like the color or it's just not your vibe, whatever, bring it back. We'd rather get that back and have you as a customer than, or whatever it happened to be. It's some really good stuff there. Anyway, I thought Ian Furr is a great example of a servant leader and has done some pretty cool stuff there. All right, let's see where we're. So I'm going to cover one or two more slides, then we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to wrap up with situational leadership after the break. But I wanted to cover something here. You're going to see, if you haven't already, the themes that are happening here when we talk about servant leadership. Leaders are not to have their butts kicked. Okay, if you're trying to become a leader simply because you want people to bow down in front of you and show you all sorts of respect that you haven't earned otherwise, then you're not destined for leadership. You might have it for a short while, but trust me, you won't lead people. They won't follow you. You won't have referential power. I don't know that you'll lose your job, but you certainly won't excel. If you're trying to become a leader simply because you think financial rewards are in your future, then you've got it backwards, because being a great leaders get great financial rewards. It's not the other way around. You don't seek great financial rewards, so I'll be an okay leader. I'll be the best leader I can be. It doesn't work that way. There's a level of authenticity that has to occur or have to be in place for you to be one of these servant leaders. It's not for everybody. You can't just fake it. People will see it for what it is. And so if you've got it and you can share it and are willing to be vulnerable as a leader, that's a big step for a lot of us. But more than anything, I think this came from Ian Furr. Part of your job is to earn the moral authority to take people to places where they wouldn't get on their own. And if they can't get there on their own, and they can get there with you because they trust you and they sense that you're ethical and want to lead them there, you will do well in your career. Trust me, okay? Because that is a very special spot that you have in people's hearts and mind. It's like a Simon Sinek kind of great leaders make you feel safe. It's that sort of kind of compelling thing. People will crawl over broken glass for you. And that's the kind of leader that most of us, I would think, want to be, not the kind that makes you kiss my butt and get my coffee before I get into the office at 9:15. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a quick story about CDH, and then we'll take a break. We didn't call it servant leadership, but in our own way, we sort of laid it out for this. I don't want to pick on the public accounting industry because it has changed substantially from when I was there back in the 80s, but it was a very top-down driven world that I came from. And partners were king, and I say king, not queen, because I think there was only one female in the entire firm that was a partner at the time. But we said, you know what, we want to strike out on our own. And we know, much like Ken Blanchard, we had to know why we wanted to exist. Okay? The mission of the organization. Somebody has a mission, you have to be able to answer, why do you exist? And so we said, we are going to exist. CDH is going to exist as an entity because we want to have a great place to work. We haven't come from a great place to work. We want to work at a great place, but we want to do really fun stuff, creative stuff. And we want it to be not trivial stuff. We want it to be of importance, that people see it as value. In fact, maybe exceptionally value. Because we like making money for doing good stuff, right? A great place to work where we do creative things of exceptional value, okay? And so the partners got started, and there was the Conway and the Durkee and the Hillman, and we had one employee. 3 partners, 1 employee. It was a bad ratio for that poor little employee because he got a lot of extra attention that he didn't want. But anyway, eventually we grew to the point where we had the ratios right. But the partners, we knew that in order to do that, we were going to need clients. And so we started working on clients, obviously. And so there was just the 3 of us and the 1 staff member, and we tried to serve clients. But if we were going to grow in the professional services business, there's something called leverage. So we had to have staff in order to do it, right? And so we were going to have to go get some consultants. So it was at this juncture where our management philosophy, and frankly our philosophy of life, had to come to bear. Because at this point, prior to that, it was just us serving clients. And you can get away with a lot, but you're basically just you and the client, and you're getting around. But now suddenly, I've got people like Brad and Jacob and Shaman and Becky here who are now going to work for me. So who is going to drive the boat, if you will? Is it going to be the partners? Is it going to be the clients? Is it going to be the consultants, or whatever? Here's what we decided. We said we are going to focus on the consultants, not the clients, ironically. We're going to focus on the consultants. We're going to make this a great place to work. We said we wanted to have a great place to work, right? That the people that we hire are smart people. They could work anywhere. We know that. They have the technology and the expertise to work almost anywhere in IT. So why do they want to work here? Well, they want to work here because it's a great place to work. We do really cool stuff, and we pay them well. So if we do this, and we try to keep it as politically unambiguous or clear-cut and without all the layers of crap, then you know what? We'll have some happy consultants. And that's what we're looking for. We want happy consultants. We know what it's like to work in an organization where people aren't happy, where they trudge into work, they're not happy with what they're doing, they can't wait to go home, they can't wait to leave, they're just not committed, they're compliant. And we thought, and it turned out to be true, that if we set up a place for people to work where they really enjoyed themselves and the work that they were doing, that they would serve our clients unencumbered with whatever happening is in the office. They're not worried about their jobs. They're being well paid. They've got good benefits. They're respected by their bosses. They're not being asked to do things that are inappropriate. And if they are free to do that, they will serve our clients well. They've got a laser focus then. They're unencumbered to do anything other than not to have to do anything but to serve their client. And if they do that, we know that the client's going to be happy. My God, these people are really motivated to do good work for us, right? We don't know why, but some magic pixie dust has been sprinkled over them, and they really care about us as a client. And, not surprisingly, happy clients pay their bill. And they don't have to be collected upon, and we don't have to call them. And I am proud to say that over 25 years of running that company, we collected way over 99% of anything we ever billed because they were happy with the work we did, right? You're not arguing with them. You're not arm wrestling. No, you must pay the bill. I can't pay the bill. You must pay the bill. I can't pay the bill. No, you know, they're going to pay the bill. when you say the job's going to be $25,000 and you bill them $23,500 and they like the work, they go, of course I'll pay the bill. I thought it was only $23,550, $23,500. Great job. I think I'll hire you again. And so if the clients pay their bill, we know that we have happy partners because I can pay my people and I can have great offices and I can have great benefits. And we have this virtuous circle that's going around so that I can have time to be a good boss and have happy consultants again. So this is our little management philosophy, kind of borrowed from servant leadership, although not directly attributed to it. And this is how we did it. Okay. I would like to take a break. It is 8 o'clock straight up. Let's come back at 8:10, grab a cup of coffee or pop or something. We're going to cover situational leadership. And it's a little tough concept. You guys had to read it and try to apply it. It's harder, but it's a really important model. And then we'll end for tonight. Okay. 8:10. Okay. We'll be right back. 8:10. Vicky, you probably told me what your husband does for a living, but what is that?
He works for Acrisure, so he's an accountant for them.
Agrisure?
Acrisure, Acrisure.
Insurance company?
Kind of, yeah. So there's probably a much better I don't know if a broker is the right term,
Okay.
but they do a lot of the accounting for a bunch of small insurance companies. And
Oh.
so they can take care of payroll, allocating out commissions and
Okay.
stuff like that. Yep. So he started off as a temp, and then after about 3 months, then they permanently hired him. And I
Mhm.
think that was in probably early 2018.
Oh,
And now
wow.
he's in a management role and has like 10 different staff. So
Nice.
he's moved up pretty quickly in the company. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. And it's out in Allendale, or where is it?
They used to be out by the airport, right across the street from Davenport.
Oh, sure.
Then they wanted to move downtown, and that where they're building right now, where that new theater is, real close to Seidman, by Van Andel.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And but they are growing so fast, they grew out of their space that was by Davenport. So the accounting department for Acrisure ended up getting moved to Cascade.
Oh.
And I think they were at Cascade for only just a few months, and then March happened, and now they're all still working from home.
I see. Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. Let's wrap up with a leadership model that I think, at least for me, resonated very, very deeply. Because I had when you take a normal management 331 or a organization behavior course, you get all sorts of different models associated with, well, how should leaders work? Or this one seems to, for me, have a real pragmatism to it, and at least from my experience, has worked well when I used it at CDH. And so, a little bit like motivational theories, we need to have more than one of them because life is more complicated than that. But in the case of this, it's called situational leadership. And so let me go through and share with you what that looks like. And then we'll talk about it afterwards. Okay. So I'm going to go from the current slide. All right. So once again, another little Dilbert cartoon. All job applicants must take the Katbert personality test to see how well they will fit into our culture. Studies show the test is twice as reliable as using astrology alone. Astrology has zero reliability. You're not a good fit, says Katbert. Okay, of course not. Situational leadership. This is I can't help but call it a complicated model. Okay, it is not trivial. Let me go in to explain something. First of all, normally, you see in the world of business a lot of 2x2 matrices. Okay, here is the x-axis, here is the y-axis, and so almost always in a 2x2 matrix, we want to be way out here, right? We don't want to be down here. Here's what happens, okay, things happen here, but could be better. Okay, things happen here, but they could be better. Oh, this is the great place to be. And for some reason or other, I get sick of that. And so sit lead, as it's called, is a 2x2 matrix, but it doesn't work that way. It works in a circular fashion. So let me go through and explain why. Okay. So first of all, there's a key concept here that says, you know what? When we provide leadership to people, we don't have a one size fits all. Okay, we got to quit using a model that always is the same thing, regardless of where our follower is. We need to adapt as leaders to give them what they need, maybe even in this particular situation or at this point in their career or something else, to give them the leadership style that they need. So these are different leadership styles. You're going to see them: directing, coaching, supporting, and delegating. and I've got some stories to go along with it because I think it makes some sense. But let's start with that. There's a premise, okay? As a leader, your leadership style needs to flex based on a couple situations within the followers. Okay, so what are those situations? Well, first of all, our followers are at different what's called developmental levels. Developmental level. How well do they know how to do the job? Okay. People who are early in their career or early to your particular company don't know how to do the job very well yet. Okay. I know you're Jacob, you're graduating with a 4-year degree and you're going to be brilliant, but when you join whoever you join, who do you want to work for, Jacob, when you get out of this joint?
I'm not entirely sure yet.
Let's pretend you want to work for, are you, no, you're a sophomore, right? You got a ways to go.
Yeah, going into my sophomore year.
All right, Shimon, who are you going to work for? Because you got graduation looking you in the eye here, boy.
I'm not completely sure yet either.
Well, then just stay in school forever. Okay, somebody's got to work somewhere. Brad, do you ever want to work? I'm just curious.
I'm in an internship right now at Hayworth. But
Hayworth, great. Okay, he's going to work at Hayworth, right? And you're going to be what at Hayworth?
work in their global information system and their supply chain.
Global information system. Okay, so he's graduating with an MIS degree from Grand Valley, right? But that doesn't make him qualified to be an MIS professional at every company in the world, right? So when he goes into Hayworth, he's going to have some MIS stuff, but he's going to have to learn how Hayworth does their MIS stuff. He's fairly new in his career, okay? Now, Becky, she's a tax person, okay? She knows Illinois personal tax like the back of my hand or your hand, all right? Okay. But guess what? If she were to join, not Price Waterhouse, but if she were to say go join KPMG, which is one of the competitors, and she was going to be their Michigan personal tax person, she'd know a lot about how to do personal taxes, but she's going to have to be still pretty new developmentally in not only how KPMG might work differently than PwC, but also maybe in the sense of Michigan personal tax vis-a-vis Illinois. Now, she's a bright woman. She's been around the block a bit. She's probably going to pick it up pretty darn quick, but that doesn't mean day one she's immediately successful as the new Michigan personal tax person for KPMG. It doesn't work that way, okay? As opposed to somebody maybe who's been there for a while. Like, for instance, Becky, how long had you been the Illinois personal tax for PwC?
I actually remember the year it happened, 2008.
Okay.
So it was till I left in 2017.
Okay. So she had 9 years of doing this. I'm going to guess she got pretty good at it. Okay. Particularly if she's the national expert in it, right? And so we were going to see that the way her boss treated her would be different. Somebody who's been doing the same job and doing it well for 7, 8, 9 years than somebody who just walked in. Doesn't matter whether the person that just walked in was a tax expert from another firm or not. They're still going to be treated differently than Becky was because she'd been there a while. Okay. So this is the developmental base. Okay, the developmental level of the follower, right? Now, what we're going to do as leaders, we're going to flex 2 muscles. Our directive behavior. When you are directive to somebody, we're telling them what to do, right? Do this, don't do that. Do this, don't do that. Okay? Then sometimes we need to be supportive. Jacob, you can do this. I know you can. You will be successful. I've seen you be successful before. You might be a little anxious right now. I got faith in you, buddy. You can do it. Okay? That's supportive behavior, right? So as a leader, we're going to flex those 2 muscles. One, telling him what to do, sometimes supporting him in what he's doing. Okay? So far, so good? All right. So here's how it works. We have to assess Jacob's competence. We have to assess Jacob's commitment. Depending on whether they're low, high, or variable, we are going to flex our leadership styles. Okay? So Let me give you some examples. Jacob, we'll stop using Jacob. When our follower has low competence, doesn't know how to do the job, but is highly committed, they're excited about the job, they just don't know how to do it yet. We, as a leader, are going to be in S1. We're going to be in the directing quadrant. I'm going to go through this twice so you'll get this. Okay. When our follower shows some competence, they sort of know how to do the job, but they're not particularly committed to doing a great job, then we're going to be in the coaching quadrant. When they're highly competent, they know how to do the job, but sometimes their commitment may flex or vary, then we're going to be in the supporting quadrant. And then finally, the last quadrant, they're highly competent, they're highly committed, we can be delegation to them. So let me tell you a story about a young consultant. His name was Shimon Robertson. Shimon showed up to CDH one day. Love that haircut. You see it? Very nice. He's got a suit, he's got a little sport, he's got a little tie on, right? Shimon, I'm going to start you at CDH. Our starting salary when I left was about, I don't know, $65,000. Is that okay for you?
Yeah.
You excited about that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Pretty good to come out of college.
Yeah, not bad. Huh? But I hear you're a good guy. I hear you work hard, right? I'm hiring you on the idea that you're going to be successful with me. Okay, great. By the way, do you know anything about consulting? No, not the way I do it anyway, right? Right? So we would have to assess Jacob, how would we assess Shimon's competence about being a consultant right now?
I guess you could probably do that like in the onboarding process.
No, I'm saying, would it be low, medium, high, or variable?
Oh, it would probably be low.
Yeah, virtually zero, right? He doesn't know what the hell he's doing, okay? But, Shimon, are you excited about joining CDH?
Mhm.
Yeah. So his commitment is high, right? So he's walking in the door. He's super excited about this new job, but he hasn't a freaking idea what to do, right? As a leader, I am large and in charge. I need to be directive, okay? I need to tell him what to do. I don't need to support him. Shimon, you're going to be so good here. I believe in you, buddy, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, just tell me what to do. Where do I get my coffee? How do I fill out a timesheet? We call them clients, not customers, right? Show up 5 minutes early. I'm going to be very directive with him, right? I'm way on the end of the director quadrant. I don't need any support. He doesn't need any support. He just wants to know what to do to be successful, right? And that's going to work for a while, right? Until he starts understanding the job, okay? So then he grows a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it's 6 months. Maybe it's 6 weeks. I hope it's not 6 years, Shimon. I hope it's 6 weeks. I hope it's 6 months. He gets a little more confident. Starts coming in a suit. Thank you very much. Okay. Still got that goofy haircut. Okay. Boss is still over there, right? He's showing some competence. He knows we call them clients now. He knows what it means to have a billable hour. He knows the kind of work that we do and what sort of makes it successful, but he still doesn't have it all figured out by a long shot. I mean, it'll be 6 months, right? As a leader, I now need to be coaching to him. Okay. I'm in the coaching quadrant. Okay. I'm still directive. Come on, you remember you gotta ying left before you ying right. When we go to the client, remember these are the kinds of things that we do for this kind of client. Oh, that's right, Paul. I forgot. Okay, whatever. But I know you've done it before, so you're gonna be successful at it. You watch me do it. You're gonna be good. That's a coaching kind of conversation. Conversations I have with him at this point are coaching. I'm using situational leadership. He's not an idiot. He already knows how to do a timesheet. He already knows how to show up on time. I'm not telling him, stuff that he already knows, but I'm just filling in the spaces where he needs it. And I'm also encouraging him. If he continues to do well, which he will, I'm pretty sure if we provide this model, pretty soon he's going to move over into this other quadrant. Now, it happens to be at CDH, we didn't call it the supportive quadrant. We called it the collaborating quadrant, but it's the same thing. Okay. He takes on a bigger role. Okay. I take on the lesser role. My job now is not to be directive. He knows what to do. His competence is pretty high. In fact, if we go down here, we're in D3. He's got high competence. But sometimes he wonders whether it's the right thing. Maybe he's questioning his career path. Maybe this is a different kind of client. He's always worked for healthcare, and now he's suddenly in the banking industry. He doesn't know whether that's right or not, right? Maybe he's struggling trying to support somebody else, so he's not sure if he's cut out for leadership, right? All of these things. As a leader, he doesn't need to be directed anymore. That's this quadrant. So he's way over here down on the low. He needs a lot of support. Shimon, you're going to be great at this. I know you are. We've seen you do this before. It can be successful. You were successful once. You're successful now. Go out there and get them. Okay? Report back to me. You need some feedback? Call while you're in the field. Let me know what's going on. I'm here for you, right? I got your back, right? That's a collaborative conversation. Let's talk about how you're going to approach this. Let's talk about how it's going to be done. Let's think it through ahead of time, okay? Now, in the world of CDH, this is where we needed him to get as a consultant. I didn't want consultants that needed constant direction or coaching. I was fine giving it to them for the first couple months or years of their tenure, but they needed to get to the S3 level at some point, because if they didn't, we were going to replace them, because I just don't have it cut out to me to be a coach forever. Okay. Now, a few are like Becky. A few go, okay, I got it, Paul. I got it from here. I'm going to go to the fourth quadrant. Okay. So we're working our way around the circle here. I am in the delegating quadrant, right? I'm now in charge of Illinois personal taxes for PwC. I am highly competent. I am the person to go to. I am highly committed. I love working here. I love the work I do. I love the people I work it with. You don't have to convince me to be here, okay? I need almost nothing from you. Please don't direct my behavior. Don't tell me what I'm supposed to do. That's insulting. And yeah, you can give me a little bit of support now and again, but I don't need a lot, right? Check in with me at review time. Tell me what you want to get done. Tell me how it might be different this year than last year. Then let me go off and do what I need to do. I'll report back to you. I'm highly committed. Don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing, right? At the end of the year, we'll have a little celebration about what I accomplished, and then I'll go off and do it again. That's the delegating quadrant. So the boss becomes not non-existent, but pretty small, right? As far as their role vis-a-vis where they were in the directing quadrant. Now they're in the delegating quadrant, okay? So this path, called sit lead or situational leadership, the same user going through their cycles, or different users at different stages of their careers, or different users because they're just different personalities, right? Some people may never leave the collaborating quadrant. Maybe they're always going to have variable commitment. I had one guy that just never really got super confident, and so he needed a lot of support. I had a few consultants who never got past, this area, in which case I had to sort of show them the door politely, because I knew that the way for us to be successful, I needed to get them over here. That's not the case for every organization. Not everybody needs to get through there, but it is very helpful to know that there are times when you need to be very direct, and you don't need to apologize for it, right? So Jacob, I got to believe when you were bringing somebody new onto a shift at Tim Hortons, you probably were pretty directive, right? As getting people started. Can you sort of walk through? Can you think of a situation where maybe there were certain people that you were very directive with, others that you were either coaching or collaborative or delegating to?
Yeah, it depended with everybody kind of how I would approach it. There was some people that still would need help getting instruction on like functionality things, just like how the machines work and stuff. And then there was other people that never really seemed to grasp the processes of the business or our rules. So yeah, it really just depended on the person.
Yeah. And in a world like Tim Hortons, maybe you can afford to have somebody who keeps forgetting how to clean out the shake machine, right? And they need to be reminded all the time. I don't know what machines they had to clean, but they would fail. You know, there are other companies, and I'm going to guess that PwC was like this, which is, no, you know what? I'm going to explain it to you a couple times, but it is eventually you're going to have to get this, otherwise we're going to move on. Becky, did you have anybody like that in your world, or a situation where you were expected to finally learn it? We'd coach you for a little while, but at some point in time, you're going to have to grasp this stuff.
Yeah, we were very careful with firing or showing people the door. So we would work with them a really long time. And then, you know, once you really wanted to show them the door, then the HR is like, well, you'd better have that file nice and thick of issues that you've been discussing with that person. Then we realized, you know, we really haven't been doing that. So it would take a long time before someone was shown the door.
Yeah, and you know what? Larger organizations sometimes have that luxury. They have more at risk for lawsuits and things of that nature. Remember, I was a relatively small company, 30 employees, so you know I could fly under the radar of a lot of things, and that's not to say I didn't need to have good documentation, and you can't be arbitrary and capricious, but you know there was definitely. I won't say an up or out. We didn't think everybody had to get to the delegating quadrant. We know that not everybody was at that, either wanted to get to there or was capable of getting there, right? So both competence and commitment. But we needed them to be able to get to a level of competence that we didn't have to spoon feed them, you know, to go down that path. Well, that's a situational leadership model, and this is a model that if you're going to become a manager or be a manager, this is not a bad model to pattern. And hopefully, over the course of your career, you might be exposed to it again. All right, I want to wrap up for tonight. Leave you be. Give you a little bit of time left. This is the reminder of what we're doing. Tomorrow night, we'll just have a quick review, just to touch base where we're at. But I don't know if I'll draw names or numbers or whatever, but be prepared at the outset to go ahead and lead us through. I will make you a co-host, and you will share your desktop or whatever you're going to share. If you have any questions that you need to have answered prior to tomorrow night, I'll hang on here for a few minutes if you need, or email me or whatever. I can meet with you during the afternoon if you'd like. But hopefully tomorrow, be careful that you've practiced this. You saw the rubric. How I'm going to grade this. Part of it is, can you follow the instructions? Do you know it's got to be 10 minutes, minimum of 10 minutes in length, but not over 20? That's a pretty wide gap. So that means you probably should have practiced it. Did you cover the various things that are listed on the various slides? Are any of you choosing to do the report instead of the presentation? I wouldn't think you would, but hey, you know, crazier things have happened. Okay, so we will have 4 presentations tomorrow night. So we will be on at least 50 minutes because it'll take some time to switch between them, and possibly more. But that's okay. And then when we're done, we're done. And so then we'll wrap up and wish each other a good life. Okay. So, all right. I'll hang around tonight if you have any questions. Otherwise. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Hi, Professor Hellman.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. That's an interesting picture. I've been trying to figure out from the perspective. Obviously, it's the Seidman building, and
right.
It is what side of the building? Now that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think. Honestly, it might be flipped, but you know how?
Oh, okay.
It's like going back towards.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. So.
For the references for the presentation, just on the slide, just like the links or whatever is okay. You don't want like a separate.
No. So where did you find some critical commentary about Bluescape?
Um, it's a little difficult. There's not a lot of criticism of it.
Well, it's not as well known, so there's not as many things out there that would be written that says, well, here's why you should use, ABC software instead of Bluescape, or I've compared the 5 similar packages because there isn't that many things that are similar. So I'm curious. I'd like to see some constructive criticism of Bluescape in your analysis there. Though. So,
For sure. Yeah, kind of one of the reasons I wanted to pick it too is because it is a Hayworth product.
right.
So,
Had you used it much before? Had you used it for any of your classes or not?
Not for any classes, but I am using it for my internship.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I got on bandwagon. How many years ago? 4 years ago? 4 or 5 years ago? I'm actually one of my classes, and I am featured in one of their training videos. I don't know if you knew that, but we use it in Management 331 as a team collaboration system.
Yeah.
And it's a good product. I really like it. It's a big piece of software, so it'll be good for the others to see it as well.
Yeah, I like it too. But I think probably for my presentation, though, I'll probably do like a demo of it too.
That's fine.
Like I'll probably actually pop in there and
That's good.
kind of show how it works.
Right. And so, what do you guys use it for? I know it's a Hayworth product, but what do you guys use it for? Every meeting has Bluescape, or just certain standing teams, or how does it work?
A lot of like the design team uses it, I think. But how I'm using it is all the interns have it, and we all have a little workspace on it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of using it as a way to just kind of track what we're kind of doing throughout the internship.
Interesting.
And then every week we pick like 4 people to kind of walk through their little
workspace. And
yeah, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm doing.
Well, it's not an entirely separate workspace. It's a shared workspace and a separate canvas on each one. Is that what
yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so when I do it with my teams, each one has a separate workspace because they are in competition with each other, and so they use that to sort of develop. Now, within each workspace, each team member has a segment, or I think it's called Canvas. I haven't used the terms for a while, but where the project manager has their section, and the quality control person has their section, and good. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing it about tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, really good. Hey, I have a life update for you. If you want to hear it.
What's that?
It's not regarding me, but it's regarding Valerie.
Oh, what's that?
So I told you already, but she's working at Spectrum. This summer with an internship. But her, I guess her supervisor there right now is leaving Spectrum to go to this company in California. The name of it is slipping my mind right now.
Okay.
Anyways, she called me in like the middle of the day at her work day, and she was like, "Hey, like, my manager just talked to me, and he said that he wants me to like potentially go work with him out in Cali."
Wow, that'd be a big step, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So already she's I think trying to plan a trip out there in like September to go visit.
That's awesome. What area of California?
San Diego area.
Okay. Wow, way south.
San Diego, but it's like an outskirt of San Diego.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, it's like they do a lot with venture capital there.
Okay.
And that's kind of what she wants to do.
That's awesome. Wow. That's good. Yeah. It's fun
Yeah.
to be young and free and crazy and doing all sorts of stuff like that. That's